So what has happened is we live in fear because not only what we think will happen, but what we have known to happen. To be totally transparent, I am a living hypochondriac. I can tell you what is wrong with me based on my diagnosis. I have no doctorate. I've studied very little medical in school. But if something is wrong with me, I can tell you what is wrong. I can diagnose it, and I can go down a rabbit hole, and I will have you thinking that I'm about to die. I have myself thinking that because of what I think might happen, what I think is going on. But it says awareness of danger, what you have known to happen. And that's where we find ourselves in the text, in Isaiah 41. We find ourselves in the text with the prophet Isaiah addressing the people of Israel. They are fearful, they're anxious, they're worried, and they have been exiled and removed from their homeland. But they were heading into a season of uncertainty, a season of fear. And as they were being forced to live in a foreign country, which was embraced a pagan culture under the Babylonians, Isaiah was trying to challenge the Israelites to remember who they are and whose they are. How many of us can relate? We are living in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of worry. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anxiety. But we, as believers, have to remind ourselves who we are and whose we are. See, fear, anxiety, and worry consume us. It keeps us from getting rest, the rest that we need or desire. According to a study, the National Institute of Mental Health in 2017, 1 in 5 adults and 1 in 4 adolescents were diagnosed with anxiety disorder. These were only the numbers that were reported, and the belief is that the numbers are even higher. Remember, fear is what I think might happen and also what I know has happened. But see, what Isaiah wanted us to learn through this text was he wanted to share why you should not fear. This text says, do not fear, for I am with you. If you read some versions of the Bible, it says, fear not. What we need to learn how to navigate fear is God's promises that we do not need to fear. Now you hear that and you're like, all right, yes, God promises that we shouldn't fear. And even as we read that, even as I read that, I was thinking of the things that I was afraid of. Now, even as a man, you know, I feel like I'm a man's man. I'm like, it's not too many things I'm afraid of. But there are some things that I fear, even as a believer. You know, they always say the who, what, where, why, and when, what we learned in school. So this would be the what. What is it? See, there's nothing that we need to fear in our walk with God. That is what? That is what we need to anchor on. When it says, why shouldn't we be afraid? There is nothing that we need to fear in our walk with God. Not death, not a boss on the job, not people, not that thing that you keep worrying about, not even the conclusion that you've created in your head. Remember, fear is what you think might happen. It hasn't even been proven. It's nothing that can come against you. As a son of God, as a daughter of God, there is nothing that can come against you that is greater than God. So that's why God was saying, fear not. When he was when this was being shared with the Israelites, it's like, I know you're living in a time of uncertainty. I know you feel pushed away. You think of us now, everybody that is wrestling with the outcome to the election. People are living in anxiety. People are living in fear. People are living in worry. I think the thing that troubles me the most, and even I was aware of this as I was reading the text, was the believers seem to make the loudest noise sometimes when it comes to being afraid, to being fearful. And we wonder why we have trouble getting others to embrace God, to embrace Christ, to come to church. We are the ones who were the first people to cry out, I can't believe a certain person won and this person didn't win, when at the end of the day, no matter who's in the White House, I know who sits on the throne. No matter who's think they running the government, I know who's in control, who's in charge. It says, fear not. But the wonderful thing, it says, for I am with you. That's the why. We know what, but the why is because I'm with you. You know, you think, all right, we should be able to wrap it up right there. But I am with you. God promises to be present with us, even when we can't track him or trace him. God promises that he will be present with us. God will not lead us into any situation and then leave us to face it alone. How many of you have felt like God has abandoned you, or that you were facing something you felt like you were by yourself? But guess what? God has been present in every situation, known and unknown, sparing you without having to do a thing. You didn't have to do some situations you've got out of. You think that you came up with a master plan. You think you figured it out, but it was all God. God made it happen. Some of us have entered spaces because of God. Not your degrees, not your references, not your resume, because of God. Because God says, fear not, I am with you. You can walk in this room because I'm with you. You can get up in front of people because I'm with you. You can do this because I am with you. The other day, me and my family were going to a basketball game. But I had got the tickets. And even though they knew where the game was at, what we were doing, they couldn't get in unless I presented the tickets. There's a lot of situations where you know where you need to go, what you need to do, but you can't get in unless you got God with you. God is your access. God is your admissions ticket. You don't have to worry about what nobody else says. You don't have to worry about what paperwork you need. There have been situations where, because of your relationship with God, you've been able to enter, but there's also been situations where you've been spared. So when I did my interview for my job, my current job, we were just having casual dialogue, me and the person interviewing me. The person interviewing me, at the end of our dialogue, shared, he said, I've never heard in an interview somebody speak so much about the God that they believe in and their faith. And I just kept telling him, I said, I have faith in me. I have faith that God's going to make a way, because I'm like, I'm going to take a pay cut. I'm working in an industry that I don't know. I don't know anything. I'm just coming in. I just applied because it was something different. And I needed something new. And it was because of me sharing my relationship with God. And he said, you know what? I'm a believer too. And since I'm a believer and you a believer, I believe in you and I believe in the God that you're talking about. So I believe that we should give you an opportunity. That is why. So it says, fear not, for I am with you. If you read Hebrews 13:5, the verse says, at the back half of the verse says, I will not leave you nor forsake you. So there will come times where there's situations where you feel like, I am by myself. I don't know how I'm going to do this. But God is present. It didn't say that at times that he would remove us from situations. He just said, I'll be there with you. And that's better than what some people can offer you. There have been people who told you, hey, if something happened, you give me a call. If something happens, you let me know, I'll be there. And you call them and they can tell you man, if you would have called me earlier, if you would have let me know in advance. It says also, do not be afraid, for I am your God. This is the who. Because he said, God promises to be our powerful God. God is going to be God. See, fear has a way of tricking us into believing what we think could happen is going to happen. And what happens when you're afraid and you're living in fear, you don't reflect on what God has brought you through. See, when history with God has shown us that God has the final say. See, we get caught up in what might happen. But if you just took a moment to reflect, what has God brought you out of? See, so us knowing the potential outcomes causes us to second guess God, not even intentionally. See, a lot of us, we believe, like, I have stern faith. I trust God. I believe in God. I am anchored in God. But then a situation happens. You get a diagnosis. You get a phone call. You hear of something, and it makes us second guess God. And see, what we have to focus on is that God does not want us dismayed or worried. Your God our God wants us to know that whatever you need, he is that in whatever season. See, for each one of us, God is different. See, for some of us, God's going to be a friend. For others, God's going to be a counselor. For some of us, God's going to be the advocate. God's going to speak in rooms that you're not in, or he's going to allow certain conversations to take place that will set you up for something that you didn't even know was coming. God is a listening ear. God is an intercessor. But it also says God is a strength. And at the end of the day, it says God says, I'm powerful. I'm going to be God. See, fear causes us to think that God is unaware of what's going on. We think that God is surprised by stuff. I truly think that sometimes we like, God, can you believe that happened? And God knew it was happening. God knew it was coming. But it goes back to when you're in a situation and God is with you. God is standing there. Sometimes we think that we're standing up, but if it was up to us, we would have already sat down. We would have already given up. We would have already threw in the towel. And God is like, no, I'm going to prop you up. I'm going to hold you up. I'm going to give you the words. I'm going to give you the energy. When you know that you are at your breaking point, when you know that you tell yourself, I cannot handle anymore, and God is provision. God is like a Starbucks coffee for some people. God will give you what you need to get you over that hump. But see, what we should be thankful of is what God is not. God does not get weary. God does not forsake us. God does not leave us. God does not abandon us. God does not worry. So when you have all those things to anchor on, I asked you, what are you afraid of? See, we should be thankful that God isn't absent in our lives, that God isn't clueless. God hasn't forfeited his power. So the text says also, I will strengthen you. That is your next promise. God promises to give us strength to face our problems. That's the win. You say, all right, so how is that win? Normally, you don't know that you need strength until you're at your weakest. Most of us don't realize when we need God until we are in those God situations. It is easy to see other people go through stuff. It is different when you are actually living it out, when you are actually in that moment to where you are struggling, you are suffering, you don't have the answers, you don't have a way out. And God restores us. See, the wonderful thing about strengthening is that it's continuous. So God knows when we're going to need strength. God knows when we're going to need to be restored. Not only when problems come, but what I want to suggest is that God allows us to endure some things because he knows what's coming next. See, a lot of times we wrestle with God and we wrestle with fear, just as the Israelites did, because there is uncertainty. I don't know what the next holds. I don't know if this move happens, what will follow that? If I do this, what could happen because of this? So that's where we go back to fear. We get back in our minds and then we start to think of all the outcomes. And isn't it funny that you can think of all the negative outcomes? Now, if somebody said list all the negative outcomes based on any decision going on, you could give them 5 to 10 negative outcomes. And they say, well, what would be the positive? You'd be like, I don't know. It is easy for us to recall negative things. It's unfortunate that we can recall. Most of us in here can tell you all the time somebody has hurt us, lied to us, did something deceitful, something wrong, but it's hard for us to recall the good things. Your list would be longer for the things that were bad, the things that you're afraid of, versus the times God has brought you out. See, strength comes from sometimes enduring. So God promises us that he will strengthen us to face our problems. See, some of us are afraid, nervous, anxious, worried about outcomes that are already built up for us to face. You have to face these outcomes, and God has already prepared a solution. God has already prepared you for what you're going to endure, but you're afraid to take that step because you've created an outcome in your head, because you can't create it in God's head. God already knows that I've already prepared you for this. I already gave you the dialogue to handle the conversation that's going to be tough. I already positioned a job for you so that you will have the desired amount that fits what your skill set is, no matter what they say. But he also says in verse 10, I will help you. God promises to provide help. So I say, why are you afraid? It says, do not fear, because God's saying, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be your God. I'm going to strengthen you. But it also says, I will help you. God promises to provide our help. That is our how. You say, how? God will provide help in various forms to ensure that his will be done. So people can have outcomes for you. They can displace you, they can misuse you, but they don't get the final say. God will supply, you look at Philippians 4:19, God will supply all our needs according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus. God will position us to receive blessings and provisions while we are in the storm. See, it said that he will be with us, he will strengthen us, but he will help you. But it never said that he will remove you. I think that we are afraid, or I can speak for myself, I think I'm afraid sometimes of how things are going to play out is because I'm second guessing, like, all right, God, are you present? But no, I know you're here. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to try to figure out my own help when I should look to where my help's coming from. And then I'm like, do I have enough strength to make it through this? And then I told you, I'm a hypochondriac, so if I can do that with my own health, just imagine the situation. I will tell myself, all right, no, I know this is going to happen. If I do this, this is going to be the outcome. And sometimes I've went forward, and when I went forward, the outcome was greater than I even expected. And I was like, man, just imagine if I didn't take those steps. To be honest, I look at my current job. If I didn't take that leap of faith, I don't know where I would be right now. I was working on the job. I was working 14 hours a day most days, 5 to 6 days a week. I passed out at work. I ain't never passed out in my life. I was just exhausted. And I thought I could keep doing it. I didn't sleep at night. I was always worried. My weekends were horrible because when I left work Friday, I was already thinking about Monday, how miserable Monday morning was going to be, what all I had to do, what didn't get done. And when I say take a leap of faith, it was, the interesting thing was when I took a leap of faith, I in the flesh was still afraid, even though I was trusting God. And even driving to the interview, I'm like, God, I trust you, but I don't know nothing about this. I'm just going to go in here and do an interview. And especially, I ain't going to lie to you, I was like, I'm going to do an interview because my wife told me I need to get another job and I need to go ahead and do this. So I'm like, I'm going to at least follow that instruction and then we'll see how it works out. And little did I know, by taking those steps and even with fear in my mind and God in my heart and walking in, that it was the best decision that I would ever make. To go into an environment. And then even I went in and I told them, I said, look, I have demands. They got the job, But I said, look, these are the demands I need you to meet. If you can meet them, you got me. And then I said, can y'all put that in writing? And they did. And they've honored their word and then some. And little did I know that, well, in the moment, the guy interviewing me was about to retire and that I would take his job. So I'm telling you from a place of experience that you don't have to be afraid. That when you walk in a room, you can walk in a room with your head held high because God is with you. If you don't know what you need to do, God will strengthen you. If you don't have the words, God will help you. And he will see you through. If you look, when you get time, I want you to read Jeremiah 38. Because it says, if you want to know what help looks like, because God will use things and people around you to bless you. And you read Jeremiah 38, he was put in the pit. And to get him out of the pit, they had to use rope and they had to use some rags. And they took the rags and told him, tuck them under your arms. And if you tuck them under your arms, we put this rope around, we can pull you out. And he was able to be freed from a pit. See, some of us have forfeited our help because we don't like who it is or what it is, and we are afraid of what it could be. So we miss out. Hebrews 13:6 says, the Lord is my helper, I will not fear. If you need anything to take with you when you leave here, the Lord is my helper, I will not fear. When you walk into your next situation, your next season, because if you live long enough, you're going to have seasons. You're going to have times where you might be afraid. But the Lord is my helper, I will not fear. You can walk in and say, all right, I don't know what I'm going to say. The Lord is my helper, I will not fear. I don't know what I'm about to do. The Lord is my helper, I will not fear. Recite that. Look in the mirror in the morning. Recite that. So I challenge you to write down 2 to 3 things. So get out a notepad. You can get your phone. Take 2 to 3 things and write 2 to 3 ways God has shown up in your life when you didn't think you had a chance to get out of the situation. And each one of us is going to be different, but you can write it in a notepad. You can put it in your phone. And then I want you to keep that note, and then you reflect on it. The next time you're feeling fearful, the next time you feel overwhelmed, take that note and look at it. Take those notes and look at what he has brought you from, what he has delivered you from. See, often it's a challenge for us because we see fear, and fear causes us to go in reverse. And for some of us, fear causes us to be on pause. Fear is a trick of the enemy. That's why in the Bible it says a spirit of fear, because it doesn't come from God. It's a spirit of fear. And when it paralyzes us, and a lot of us have not taken the steps necessary to reach the goals that we have for ourselves, and even for some of us to fulfill the will that God has for our lives, because we have been paralyzed. We have lived what we deem as a safe life in God, with God. When God's saying, I am with you. If you trust me, I will take you to different places. But the text says, I will uphold you with my victorious right hand. God promises to support us with his power and authority. That is his where. So we've had the what, we have the who, the how, the when. This is the where. You say, how is that possible? How is this the where? See, God has an unblemished, undisputed, and undefeated record. And if you ever see in the Bible and even in your life, God normally shows up and shows you to be victorious in front of other people. That's why it's the where. It's in front of other people. God will place you in different environments, different atmospheres, to where you will be victorious. And it's not because of what we've done, it's because of God. Now, some of y'all might take credit for it, but it's because of God. And typically when you're victorious, it's in front of a crowd. I want to suggest that you don't have to fear because God will uphold you when they try to hold you back. Because some Bible, it said, versions, it said his righteous hand, his rightness. See, God is sovereign, which means God has the final say. God is always in control. Now, others might think that, but God is always in control. Yes, you could go to your job tomorrow and your boss could fire you, but God is in control. I firmly believe, because we all think it. You're like, all right, if I lose my job, I won't be able to take care of this, that. God's in control. It is possible for you to lose your job and you don't lose your house. It is possible for you to lose your job, you don't lose your car. It is possible for you to lose your job and you still able to do everything that you currently do. It is possible for you to get sick and you continue to live. I've seen it. I've seen people where they told them, they said they had months to live and it's years later and they're still alive. God, in his righteousness and his rightness and salvation, will always prevail. So I ask you, why are you afraid? Because if God prevails and I'm one of God's kids, we prevail. If God prevails and I'm one of God's kids, then we prevail. See, fear causes us to distance ourselves in a relationship. When it says, I am with you, I firmly believe that is God holding my hand. When it says, don't be afraid, for I am your God, that is God saying, I am with you, I'm going to be your God, so I'm going to be your protector. When I strengthen you, I'm going to stand there and I'm going to make sure that you don't get weak, nothing overcomes you. When I'm going to help you, it means that your hands might be moving, your feet